Well, it was a natural proclivity to horses, in all honesty. It wasn't my choice. They chose me.
Yeah.
I was 5 years old when I met my first horse. And from there, I started working with horses at 8 years old. And individuals would see that there was an intuitive nature, but that was captured in saying I had talent and then molded into if you have talent, then we'll mold it into the Western culture. And then you need to compete and
Mm.
you need to train. And I did that for the majority of my life until I turned 40. Basically, from 8 till 40, I mm, molded myself to what was accepted and what gave me accolades from society, from culture, from the industry,
Mm.
and my ego,
Hmm.
my own pressure and my ego. Um,
Love that.
and then at 40, I was given the most amazing gift and a catalyst to my awakening. And at that point, I could not climb onto the back of a horse. I
Yeah.
could no longer ask the horse to perform for me.
Mm.
Um, I surrendered and became a student of the horse.
Mm.
And then realized that the entirety of my life, it's just been this huge gift where that is my connection to source. But I was always in odds with it until 40, and now just continue to learn to undo everything I had learned.
Yeah. And it's, I love that because it sounds like it's your understanding of the way that a horse represents, what a horse represents in your life up to that point changed as your spiritual journey started to open up, right? So like you started
Absolutely.
to be able to think differently on your own journey and be able to look at the things around you and be like, well, if I'm approaching life differently, then life is approaching me differently. And I don't feel good or want to change my relationship with or understand this being in a different way. And if I'm going to grow as a human being, I see this beast, this beautiful being across from me that I've been utilizing in a certain way that I can grow with that spirit in a different way too. And I just love how that intersecting of paths is like the understanding of one leads beautifully to the opening of another one.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I for a long time saw parallels. Anything that I was coaching to another person, like as I would speak it in a lesson,
Hmm.
it would be happening in my life.
Always.
Characters that were in my life, I was then looking at the horses and they were playing out the same energy for me. So I always saw the parallels. I
Mm.
always knew there was a deeper connection. People would ask me, well, how do you know? And I'm like, well, I just know.
Mm.
But I didn't have any of the teachings or the knowings of clairvoyance or intuitive teachings anywhere in my life. And so I had to start that journey on my own,
Yeah. Well,
figuring that out.
as you're entering into this journey now, or been working this journey for a little while now, and we start to get the vocabulary words to understand like what we've been feeling or experiencing. Or we start
Yeah.
to like get some vernacular to be like, oh yeah, that's the thing, that's the fucking thing, right? Now,
Hmm.
can you overlay that and look back at your journey up to that point and be like, wow, I do see a lot of these things that I didn't see at the time, but if I take the moment and reflect, I see these ways that the horse was guiding me in a way outside of what I thought a horse would be guiding me. Or I've got like messages from this or this experience that didn't seem like a thing at the time, but now that I look back with this beautiful vision in front of me and this understanding of this vocabulary, I can be like, oh, I do see that now. I could see the lesson that maybe I didn't see at the time, and now it can fuel me going forward.
Yes and no.
Cool.
Mm.
There was a large dissonance. There was a large disconnect because I had a fair amount of trauma.
Okay.
And I played out that trauma in my accolades with horses,
Mm.
where I was seeking validation from others and from the horses to perform. So
Mm.
there was a big disconnect for a very long time that, yeah, naturally underneath the surface, I was always feeling them, but I wasn't conscious of it. And until I became conscious of it, could I then see the teachings and the lessons that were always there in front of me.
I think that's, I mean, for me, the way that I relate to that is that's how all of our lessons in life seem to kind of play out is there's this subconscious undercurrent that's carrying us until you mentioned I think you said at 40, there was I'm going to call it divine intervention, but an event that happened, which now I'm like, you have to tell me about that because that's what I want to know is like what cracked you open to be present enough to recognize that that current was happening, to pause and reflect and make a shift. So I'm curious, like what happened that you got off the horse and started, I'll just say from what I've witnessed, meeting it heart to heart.
Yeah, I agree with you. The undercurrent that's pulling us all on our path, and it's always there. And when we look back, we could see it. I always envy when I read books from different healers that say, "Oh, I always knew it from the ripe age of 4," or whatever it might be, you know. And I'm like, "Oh man, I really didn't." It was an undercurrent that looking back, I could pull that out in my story. But I didn't honor it until I became and was ready to become very conscious of it. And what led to that is I was in a marriage, and it was an extremely abusive relationship. And I played my part, and he played his so beautifully and soul met. We had quite the contract. And verbal, physical, financial abuse, and emotional abuse. And I would have still been in that situation had it not been for my child speaking up that the abuse had not only reached me, but had reached out to my children. And so the greatest form of love, is showing up for yourself, but I couldn't do that until it hurt something that I loved even more, that taught me how to love myself. And so I removed that catalyst from our life and began to heal. But when I started looking at abuse, I had to look at myself and where I was abusive in nature to really heal from my core and ask myself, why is this an energy that is being reflected to me? Where did this stem from? And I had to do a lot of deep soul searching and look at anywhere that I took part in abuse with others, with animals, and with myself. Yeah. I had to strip it down.
Yeah. And that's such a big journey to one, recognize and to be able to admit that you are being abused and that you're accepting things that you're not wanting to accept. But then to also recognize your own place in that, because we all do have our own places, right? And in different varying, and I'm not placing blame and pointing fingers, but we all play a part in every role that we're in. And so that's so difficult to be able to unpack both of those at the same time. You know, were there practices that you found that were helpful to help hold those both truths at the same time while still working on both and still loving yourself while you're still working through those things? That's big. Those are big journeys right there.
Yeah. Well, much like a horse, because there's always the parallel.
Yeah.
I freeze, I flee, and I fight, and I fawn, just like a horse will. And I froze at the first part of my journey. I was frozen. I was in denial. I didn't want to look at the pain that was sitting in front of me.
Stages of grief.
And then I would fight it with the denial. And then I fled. I started running. And I threw myself into the physical form of meditation through movement and pounding the ground. It was still a form of abuse to myself, if you will, because man, I pounded the ground mile after mile. And in the first year, I did 5 marathons. So I later found out that the feminine form of meditation is through movement, and the masculine form of meditation is through sitting, and I could not sit. I started practicing with a shaman, and while I would lay on her table and she would do healing modalities and journeys on me, I would pick my legs up and I would just pedal in the air. Like I had to move, I had to run to release all of this energy, all of this trauma, pain. Uh,
Now, did you feel like you were
yeah.
when the because movement can be looked at as many different ways, right? And so
hmm
that constant desire to find movement, even in your stillness practices, do you feel like you were, let's say, running? Let's use that. Do you feel like you were running towards something or running from something? Just looking back, like having the gift, the beautiful gift of hindsight to be able to say, now I have this clearer version of myself that I can look back and overlay this narrative. I felt like, yes, I was running away from something, or I was running towards something. Like they both are great because we can be running away from something that's nasty, but while running towards something that's beautiful.
Both. I
Yeah.
was running from an old version and shedding that version. And honestly, in the first year, I ran into a snake on almost every run. And I am terrified of snakes.
Oh, I would love that.
But I would run into a snake by the end of all these marathons. Like I would just look over. I kid you not, it'd be November, and I'd go to squat behind a tree. My foot would slip, and under the leaves, a snake would be there. And I finally just started saying, "Hello,
Yeah.
here it is, another layer." So I felt like I was running from shedding these layers and
Mm.
running to the new version of me. Yeah, both.
Wow, that's beautiful. Do you feel so? There's a good friend of ours named Kylie that has this process she works with called grief composting, and it's a tough concept to get when you're in the early stages of grief if you're experiencing it yourself, because the idea of taking something that you're going through that's really terrible trauma in your situation, and knowing that in the future this is going to be the thing that helps us survive and that gives us the strength to go forward, because we've given that grief the time to separate itself from the happiness, to sit, to process, to add nutrients, to give some time and space, and then eventually that grief can become something strong for us. And you know, that's a difficult concept. But do you feel that that time away from your grief and that work with the horse has given you that ability to kind of look at something and say, like, I can see not the benefit, like there's one, but I can see a way that this has been helpful for me to move forward in life.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it has given me, I wouldn't be who I am today without this
Right.
experience. And it has given me the ability to sit in discomfort myself and with others,
Mm.
and really allow all feelings, especially one of anger. I had a lot of what I felt like at the time was righteous anger towards others and towards myself. But as angry as a little human being that I met, I have just as much compassion. And so it was a really beautiful thing to meet both sides of that in me. So when my anger visits, now I welcome it because I recognize it's just deepening my connection with myself and my connection with compassion for myself and for humanity.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
had to find a great level of forgiveness for myself and compassion for myself, that then I can see the other characters that have been in my life, that they deserve as much forgiveness and compassion as well.
Yeah.
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 Well, when we can invite the those emotions in and really sit with them and understand that they have a message for us, like anger. You know, anger has a message. It doesn't. You don't have to
Mhm.
act on the message, but if you don't take time to hear the message, the anger is going to get stronger and be like, "Hey, fucker, we got something to tell you," right?
Yeah.
And just like
Yeah.
sadness, just
Oh,
like
yeah.
grief, all that stuff, right? So
Yes.
there's a beautiful interview I listened to a number of years ago with the Dalai Lama, and he was talking about anxiety and how he suffers from anxiety, and he would sit in his meditations, and then anxiety would come, and he'd be like, "No, no, no, get away, anxiety! I don't have time for you." And then he said one time he
Right.
was sitting and anxiety presented itself, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? Come on in. come in, anxiety, sit down, let's have some tea, and let me hear what you have to say. And anxiety delivered anxiety's message. They had some lovely tea, and then anxiety got up and left. And it's like, cool, you took time to hear your message. And that's all that the thing needed to do, was be like, hey, just so you know, this is something we're worried about, we're scared about, we're happy about, anything, right? That we're just not giving the time for. And then it says, okay, cool, now I'm out. You've got the message, right? But it did its job. Right? You know, we just got to create that space to hear. We have discernment to say yes or no. But if we're not going to take the time to hear the message, you know, that's like that whole mom. And then all of a sudden there's like ankles, pulling on pants, pushing on the hips. It's like, mom. It's like, what the fuck do you want? And they just say hi and then run off. And you're like,
yeah,
right.
That.
I was thinking about this too recently, because I do a lot of work with anger and rage and processing emotions. And, you know, that for me, it's a common practice to look at like the beliefs that are under it. But I started recently diving, and this isn't a new thought for me, but I started spending more time on it, is what are these feelings trying to protect? And, you know, there's always a message that's coming through the emotions. And when I don't make time for it, that's where I'm abandoning myself, which is just going to create more of my own suffering. So if I sit down with it, and, you know, lately there's, if you're online at all, there's probably lots of different reasons for people to be feeling angry or upset or unsafe, or, you know, what variety of shade that might be for you. But when I ask it, like, what is it protecting? Then it gives me a lot of depth and insight of what is really important to me. And I hear that with you in this huge transformation that came through your kids. And I teared up because I got sober because I was terrified I was going to lose my kids. I didn't have enough love for myself at that time. And I remember being in the rooms and people saying, let us love you until you learn to love yourself. And so much of my work in this last many years, but feels really potent this last 1 or 2 years, is about the way that we heal together. And I just went to this amazing event last night at the Paramount where it was celebrating First People, First Nations, Native, primarily Canada and the US. And I also just watched this really incredible documentary. I think it's called The First Song. I'll have to look again and I can send you the link so that we can put it in the show notes. But what I hear is your relationship to the nature of animals and how they show up for you and the messages that they bring, whether it's the horse or the snake. And that is so deeply resonant for me, which is why I've related to Native American traditions so much. And especially living in this part of the world, it's everywhere. You can't live in this part of the world and not be influenced by it in some way, spoken or unspoken, or that unconscious current. But yeah, I hear you being willing to be present with whatever presents itself and understanding that no matter what, it's a beautiful gift.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we bring up Native American traditions, and what was so interesting is at the beginning of this journey, when I was running, that was one of many things that I ended up doing and exploring for myself, just as a student of life. And I actually started with a traditional Western therapy and therapist, and at the same time met with a shaman. And in that first year, I did 2 days shaman, 2 days therapy, and I survived the weekends.
Wow.
It was a dark time for a while, and I have a hard time reaching out for help. And at that time, I was like, I have to do everything that I can in my power. And it was a beautiful blend. It was really a beautiful blend of healing in both arenas. And when I laid on the shaman's table and we would journey, what was so interesting is that everything, the drumming, the stones, the prayers, felt like home. It felt so familiar. There was no question. And it's pretty out there if you haven't heard the language, you know. And as we would open up every prayer to Pachamama, you know, and she would be spitting Florida water on me, you know, it's pretty out there. And I was like, yeah, I'm home. Like, I'm home. I've been waiting for this. And that really pulled me back to what I would say were my indigenous roots and my ancestors in those journeys and in those prayers. And then I found it rather funny that when I came into this life form, this physical body, that no one in my family is associated with horses. A lot of people will come by it, you know, through family. And I am a runner and I'm a drummer. So I had these three things and I was like, I'm back with my people. I just felt, I felt reconnected. Yeah. It was a beautiful, beautiful gift, again, to help me along the journey.
Yeah. One of the terms you use that I love is interspecies translator. Do you mind just talking about what that means to you? You know, I love that, you know, there's so many species in this world. Actually, okay, I'm going to preface this with a question because somebody asked me this the other day and I was so quick to answer and it was the complete opposite from everybody else's answer. So the question was, if you had, okay, so as a human being, you could have either the ability to understand and communicate in all languages with humans or understand and communicate with animals. Which one would you do? One or the other. Can't do both.
I feel like I already do it with animals, so I feel like
I'm animals 100%. I want to know what an octopus says. Oh, you know, I want to see what an eel's got to say. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'll figure you out, human, because we have the same amount of coming in hot. We have the same amount of appendages and like we can click, we can figure it out, right? But from like an animal or a giraffe or a fucking buffalo, no, I want to know what's going on in there. I would much rather that.
I don't think I would want to do it with humans because I struggle enough to deal with my own process of thinking and not thinking. So the idea that I would then be able to do it with all beings, I like having more unknown with humans, and maybe that's even true with animals. Like I like the mystery. That's really important for me.
Yeah,
I wonder. What about you, Jess?
Me. You say I have to choose one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other. You either talk to all humans or all animals.
We're all energy. So if we can, I believe that the animals are better teachers because there is no ego. And so if we can learn from them to learn more about ourselves, we would be able to communicate with all humans just on an energetic level.
Yeah.
So one, so that I get both.
Which made me think, you know, I know you asked her a question. We'll come back to that because if I don't say this now, I'm going to forget because perimenopause. But I think it's in the book Waking the Tiger, Peter Levine. If it's not that one, it's one of the other somatic books where they're referencing animals when they are frightened, they freeze, right? We're talking about the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. There's now friend. I'm like, stop with all the F's. We're good. We can. They're all umbrellaed. It's okay. But I get it helps. So there's often in the kind of healing spaces or trauma spaces, these stories are told where you see a bunny rabbit, there's a wolf nearby, it freezes in the field, the wolf doesn't see it, the wolf leaves, the bunny shakes, and then it goes back to whatever it's doing. And I love that because it helps people understand that when something stressful happens, we tighten up, we contract, we move through this traumatic response, which is nature in our body. But I watched my dog the other day, and this was like life-changing for me when I was in Western therapy. I was seeing a counselor sometimes 3 times a week, so I remember that phase of life also, in addition to going to 12-step meetings and like just soaking my bones in as much care as I could. And she talked to me about like my busyness and all the goodness in my life that I was also exuding energy and that's stress. So I watched my dog go after a squirrel the other day, which she loves now that we live in condos, because out in the woods, there aren't very many squirrels. And if there are, they're in the tree and they're usually barking at you. So she bolts after this squirrel and she's so excited. And then I watched her walk a few feet away and then shake. And I was like, it's not just when we're scared that we need to discharge this exuded energy. It's also when we're excited, right? And so I just was really sitting with both sides of that coin. Like, we are so accustomed to teaching everybody about how to respond to the energy that ignites within us when we are scared or traumatized in some way. But it's also really important to do if you've just spent a week away with your best friends or a marathon, right? Like, there's so much energy and so much adrenaline. It's not just when we're scared. Anyway, I just felt like that was something that I wanted to share.
Yeah, no, I love that. They really point us to our nervous system, right? And just recalibrating, resetting our nervous system. Always just reconnecting to our breath. It's the step one that I try to work with any individual when beginning to communicate with their horse.
Yeah.
And I believe, Adam, you were asking about the communication. Did you ask about the communication?
I did.
What did
Yeah,
you
I
say?
would love to know what interspecies translator means to you. Like, I could definitely dissect it from my side, but like, you're the one doing it, so let me hear it.
Well, I actually wrote about this a while back. I'll have to dig through my notes and send it to both of you at some point. But I was like, if we're going to be in this human form and humans spend so much time categorizing and labeling, I'm like, I would like to make up my own label. And so I came up with interspecies translator, because it's not the traditional. I'll hear people say, I'm an animal communicator, or people will refer to me as a horse whisperer, and none of those labels felt accurate, the way in which I was defining them in my head, or the way in which I've seen them defined. And so I asked myself, well, what is it that you're doing? And oftentimes I'm listening to the human and finding the thread that we need to follow to a misbelief. And at the same time, that when I'm listening to them, how they're describing their horse, how they're feeling their horse, how they're describing themselves. And so when we can go to that misbelief and we can meet it with love and we can meet it with breath, oftentimes the horse then will, at that time, want to connect in with us because we're fully present. There's nothing blocking us from being able to connect with them.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, because I come from the performance world of horses, where I say there's this big pendulum swing, the performance world to the spiritual world, and I'm a hybrid in between the two, that a lot of people in the performance world are still wanting to do the thing, do the performance. And so oftentimes, because that's the agenda, they're not hearing the horse. Everybody has the ability to communicate, but there's something in the way of that communication. And oftentimes there, it is an agenda. And so sometimes we get the lesson that we want. Oftentimes we get the lesson that we need. And that's where I come in when I get to guide them, is the lesson that they need. And then sometimes that results in, great, then they continue on co-creation and they get to perform. And sometimes their soul has signed up for something different and it goes on to this end of the spectrum, and they have to release a lot of those agenda-driven goals and begin to meet themselves at a different level. Neither one is better or right or wrong.
Right.
It's just simply meeting them where they're at. And that's where I started going, oh, well, I'm not just communicating with the animal. I'm not just communicating with the human, but I'm doing a translation between the two.
Welcome, love. If you're feeling the pull to remember your power, soften your body, and return to your truth, I invite you into my world of healing arts and transformational coaching. I'm Awa Wild, intuitive guide, energy medicine woman, and creator of Sensuous Revival Healing Arts. I help individuals and couples release old patterns, dissolve shame, reconnect with pleasure, and rise into a more liberated life. Through sacred pelvic healing, somatic practices, intuitive body talk, and emotional integration, you'll learn to listen to your body, trust your intuition, and create relationships that feel nourishing and aligned. Whether you work with me one-on-one, join a retreat, or step into my online program, you'll receive an experience of deep presence, compassionate guidance, and practices that create lasting change. If your soul is ready for more freedom, more pleasure, and deeper truth, I'm here. Learn more at sensuousrevival.com or reach out directly to begin your journey.
And that's so beautiful because I mean it lines up with the whole mindset shift of going from, just being, not just, I shouldn't say that, but whatever awakening that we go through, right? Now, I'm not going to define everybody's awakening, but part of that understanding of being able to expand the way that you think is that idea that, like, if I do something to you, it's going to eventually hurt me, right? This is a me, you, this is an all of us kind of thing, right? And that co-creation you talked about with the horses is like, at this point I have an agenda and I'm going to race around these barrels and I need you to go as fast as you can and respond when I pull the reins or kick you, right? I'm manipulating you and I need you to respond, rather than, hey, now guess what? We get to do things together. What would you like to do, right? And what is the approach you want to take, right? Because if I co-create with you, then I know that your willingness to move forward with this is going to just make this even more stronger, because I'm not manipulating you. I don't have any like adverse expectations. I've set my expectations and you've said I agree or I don't agree, and then either way we have information we can move from, right? And that's the same with everybody, right? This human beings. I don't want to manipulate you. Well, maybe at a point in my life I did want to manipulate you, but at a point now it's like I would much rather you agree on your own volition to come along on this ride with me, and we're going to have a great time, and it's going to be kind of scary at times, but hey, at the end it'll be fun, right? We're gonna eat some chocolate, talk about our feelings and shit.
This feels like this is like every marriage contract. It's so funny because I think about the ignorant moments in which in my life I've thought I wanted X, Y, or Z from someone, and what's really under that is that I want to feel X, Y, or Z, and I'm thinking that I'm going to access it from this other person, being, horse, whatever. I'm curious what drives someone to reach out to you and do this work? Like, is there a common conflict that somebody's experiencing, or like what kind of person will be like, I really need Jesse to help me?
Great question. You know, currently, a lot of people have ridden with me for a period of time and then went through my evolutionary journey where my language started to change, my invitations started to change, the way in which I approached them and their horses. So some of them came along the journey with me and they were really excited and wanting something for themselves, or something was resonating. And others left, to follow their own journey, whatever that may be. And currently it's actually, I'm in this state where I said I'm in this hybrid state. And so I've gone pretty quiet and I haven't advertised or put myself out there in any way because I'm so delicate about where I am right now and what it is that I am asking the horse, because I've delivered the spectrum of it. And now I'm sitting in this quiet space, really asking myself all the time, what is in alignment with me and what am I offering? And so a lot of the individuals that have come along my path, it has been through a riding lesson where they signed up for something that they wanted, but they got what they needed.
Yeah.
And then some of them went, all right, like I'm really curious. And as we've all experienced, with our different modalities and our different offerings, they come in, each person comes in when they're ready or where they are, and they come in for maybe a taste and leave. Maybe they come in for the full course meal. You never know. Yeah. So, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like a lot of times in that part of the conversation, I kind of call it the front door. Like I've been an esthetician for 20 years, and that was my front door for a long time until I transitioned into
Yeah.
coaching. And I also know I'm in a very similar place. And that's, you and I've been talking about that, where it's like one part of my world fell apart and I'm coming back together in the way that feels most meaningful. And sometimes it's really hard to define. But I think it's also funny to recognize, like, for instance, I'll have people come to me because they're, struggling with their career, right? And this was my niche for a while, was working with people that were in corporate that wanted to go wellness. It was kind of an interesting dynamic because I've spent very little time of my life in corporate. I've been pretty much an entrepreneur from day one. But they would come to me for that. And then it was actually usually some form of a disillusionment of a major relationship in their life, whether it was, a husband or a wife or a life partner or a parent or a sibling or even a child. And so I'm curious, with the clients that you have worked with, what are they individually facing? Maybe what do they come to you with? And then what does it evolve into? Like what you're saying, they come to you for the lesson because maybe they want to know how to have a better ride. And then they end up finding out that, I don't know, some other major
Yeah.
life issue.
Yeah. All things are playing out there, right? I always say what happens in the arena or in the saddle is happening outside of the saddle and outside of the arena. So if they're facing fear, we uncover where that fear lies. If they're facing a misbelief in themselves about not being worthy or not being capable or not being love or believing in loss in the physical form, it opens up a door to anywhere they are. That's the magic. When the magic really unfolds is when someone is open and we get to explore that thread. It goes to unimaginable places, where we're no longer sitting on the horse, but amazingly, sometimes these sessions are with horses. We're actually sitting with their horse. And sometimes it's over a Zoom call. Sometimes it's in person and they're on a table. All of it is connected, right? All of it is connected. When we are in the presence of the horse, oftentimes the horse will be disconnected from us at that time until my clients begin to speak their truth. And I kid you not, then the horse looks up, then the horse engages and comes over and is more than happy to participate when they get in touch with themselves. Yeah.
It's almost like the horse can recognize that and be like, okay, you're being honest with yourself now. Now I want to play this game. I'm come over. I want to participate.
Oh yeah.
That's beautiful.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're here, all 4 feet on the ground, grounded, present, right? Their intention is to look around and be aware of all things and energy. And so the minute they feel that shift, there's a pretty amazing shift that happens within the person too.
Yeah.
Like they begin to breathe, the nervous system resets, everything begins to flow. And yeah, the horse very much becomes interested in that energetic exchange. I get all different types of things. I have one horse in my barn that for the longest time I had an ego human story about him where he was just very busy all the time, busy, busy, busy. And I sat with him daily asking him what he had to teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come up and he would, nudge me, bite at me, paw at me. And every session was so obnoxious to me, right? That I'm like, okay, all right, you don't have anything to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was him displaying how unsettled my energy was, how unpresent I was to listening, even though I was stating the question, what do you have to teach me? Then my mind was wandering and busy, and my breath was, chaotic, or I wasn't centered in me. And one day he was only on the left side of me, nibbling at me, pawing at me, doing all sorts of things. And I finally took my Reiki practice and just started to perform Reiki on the left side of my body. And I just started to sob. And I didn't understand a thing about it. I just had to feel it, right? That's all.
Yeah.
I just started to cry. And for the first time, and I've known this horse for 15 years, and for the first time in my life, he put his head over me and closed his eyes and was so very still and quiet. And he was just waiting for me to get still and quiet and get rid of that ridiculous story that I had about him.
That's so beautiful.
I mean, there's so many animals that have helped humans evolve, right? Domesticated animals, right? Dogs, when we introduced, domesticating dogs, we had another barrier between ourselves and nature, right? So say we were building a house and we had a domesticated animal, that dog could be out there patrolling the woods and then would bark if a bear came. And so we could get deeper into our projects because we knew that there was a barrier out there. Same with horses. Horses allowed us to travel distances really quickly, right? And they cut down the distance a lot so we could, right, wrong, or indifferent, inhabit this entire country. Right. Or the world. Right. And not just the States. Right. And so there's these animals that have grown with us without, like you said earlier, the ego that we know of as a human. And so it's like these beings have been watching us grow for thousands of years, and they've been growing with us. And they were like watching the humans and be like, man, you guys
you guys are idiots.
Bipedal hairless apes. One day you'll get this. And then it's like the acknowledgement of, oh, hey, we've used you as a tool for so long, and I recognize the spirit that's within you, and then all of a sudden it's like the horse can be like, okay, cool. Now let me tell you what you've been missing. Here's all the suffering I've seen you go through that you didn't need to go through. Here's the lessons that you might have skirted that you could really revisit again, and it's like, as soon as we recognize the teacher in everything, then the teacher becomes everything. Right. And we can learn from all the things. And I think that opens up this idea of like, well, shit, what else am I turning a blind eye to?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you have an amazing journey, and it's been riddled with lessons and opportunities and things like that. But it sounds like you're making your way through it and finding your ways to understand the maybe a through line that's through that. But you're also writing a book now. And so is a lot of the experiences in life that you've been going through, is that kind of funneling the idea of the book that you're calling All of My Mirrors?
Yeah, I wrote a book at the beginning of 2020 that I finished in 2022.
Okay.
And I called that book I Return. And I came across this amazing editor. And she's a feminine empowerment coach as well. And she was Jane Goodall's ghostwriter.
Awesome.
And she's just a powerhouse of a lady. And we started working on editing that book. And as we made our way through it, I got to a point where we were beginning to talk about publishing and what that looked like. And I said, I'm done. And she's like, what? I said, I'm done. And I said, I wrote this book for me and my healing. And this isn't what I am supposed to share with the collective conscious right now. And this isn't what I'm supposed to share with the universe. The universe needs me to share something else. And she just said, I really honor that. I've written many books that have just been for me.
Wow.
And so I sealed that up and put that away and began writing And what was so wild is the foreshadowing that happened. I now will call myself a writer. But prior to 2020, I had never written a thing in my life except what was required of me in school, right? And that was a painful process. But on my 40th birthday in 2020, 2 weeks before like a detonator went off on my life, I wrote in the notes section of my phone that I said, I feel called to write about my journey with horses and my growth journey. Like, I feel called that this is what I'm supposed to do. Mind you, have never journaled, have never written, wrote that down. 2 weeks later, my entire life changed. And I started journaling that change. And that was what became my first book. And that was my healing journey and written for me. I did not want to share a lot of parts of that story because it involved other people.
Right.
And it was only through my perspective. And I don't want to share other people's stories through my perspective. So I started on this second book. And that was the reflection that I was seeing in every one of my horses and what I was stating to individuals about their horses and how it was reflecting in my life. Literally, when I would have a romantic partner, I would have a horse that would like simulate them. And I would have like the same interactions. And, you know, like if I had a really goofy partner, I'd have a really goofy horse. I'd have these chain of events. And so I started writing about that and then just got reacquainted with my original editor, and we're beginning to work through this book together.
That's great. It's funny, you've mentioned the synchronicities a couple times now, and it's, I think, you know, as we start to move into a more aware version of life, and that doesn't mean like awakening or enlightenment or whatever it is, right? But you're just paying attention to life a little bit more. Like even if like you're car shopping and all of a sudden you're attracted to blue Toyotas, and now all you see are blue Toyotas, right? It's the blue Toyota effect,
right?
But you know, as we start to move into these awareness expansion ideas in our lives, we can start to see like a lot of these synchronicities that match up. And it's not like we got to go seek them out. We don't have to like search them out and be like, oh, I'm got to notice all the synchronicities.
Set the timer for 11:11.
Right, exactly. Right. It's actually okay. I'm gonna just bring this up real quick. I've read about because you know there's enough science now that shows that when we go through hard times in life, that the back end of that, if we go through it in a healthy way, we learn a lot. We're really grateful. Like one of the benefits of hindsight, which we've talked about a couple times, is that after the fact, we can string together a narrative that makes the shitty thing make sense because now we've lived it. And that's fine, right? Make it make sense to you, right? Make it make sense, because if there's a narrative that can make you understand that you've learned something and that's not like your life falling apart, move forward with that.
Yeah,
right?
it's not a debt upon your system. It's actually a credit.
Exactly. You know, and so there's actually a contingent of young adults. I've saw this on Instagram a couple times that are trying to induce their own traumas so they can learn something and then be stronger from it on the back end. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that. You can't induce your own traumas, sexual trauma, business trauma, whatever, family abuse trauma, whatever it is. Like go up to your dad and just like talk shit to him until he beats you up. And then you're going to go marinate about that and learn about life. It's like, no. That's not the way that works, right?
Yeah, that's not nature.
That's crazy. You know, we can't shortcut all these fucking lessons in life, right? But they're always there for us, you know. And so it's not searching them out. It's not like, you know, like, oh fuck, I just missed a message. But as we start to move into these spaces, it does almost become comical. It's like, oh, this horse is now reflecting my romantic partner. That's comical. That's fucking. I mean,
that's what the whole podcast is about, right? Like, can we take things that are deep and really intense and find the laughter and the hilarity of it, and also see where we get dirty, right? Like whether it's sexually dirty or putting, you know, your hands in the dirt. It's all the same. So, yeah, the human experience. We know that laughter is good medicine. And, you know, that one of the things that I love reflecting on for myself in my own journey is how I've been able to turn pain into purpose, right? Like, it's inevitable that we'll experience pain, but how much am I ruminating on it or trying, like we've talked about, trying to like push it away, right? Judging the horse and being like, why are you so squirrely, right? Which the whole time you were talking, I was like, I wonder what she was observing in me when I was there with the horses. Because while you were talking, I was like, oh my God, I could very clearly see what it is that I'm working on is exactly as soon as you said that. Because when I'm with the horses, I feel like I can let go. They are stronger than me. They are grounded. I am not in control. And I get to feel deep faith and trust. And I crave that. Like I really genuinely crave having a space where that is, I was going to say my reality, but my projection. And it's also, it requires me to be really present in myself. Like the horse, I can't look away. I can't, be not present because the horse will demand that of you.
Right.
But a lot of people, when I talk about my love of horses and the experiences that I've had with them, and people respond and they're like, oh, they're so scary. That I'd be curious, what do you say to somebody who says that? Because immediately I have to filter through my judgments before I can respond, just like, off the cuff. But horses for me, since I was a little girl, have always felt like God. Like they have always just been this like massive presence. I don't even know how to explain it, which is kind of a beautiful thing. Yeah. What do you say to people when they say horses are scary?
Honor your fear. Honor your fear because that's teaching them something, whatever it is. But if they are fearful, I've had to learn that is if somebody comes to me and they're really fearful, I need to set up a space, whether that means that the horse is not right next to them or anything, that they can begin to feel safety. Because if they're feeling fear, the horse will feel that fear. And to your point, when you're like, I wonder what she was thinking when I was there, I actually listen more to the horse than I do the person.
Yeah.
I just watch the horse and how the horse is responding. And that's the most beautiful part, right? That because we could get stuck in our narratives, whatever our narratives are, whatever our stories are, whatever the words are. And I just watch the energetic exchange. And when it's pure and it's connected, the horse will feel safe. Or the horse will feel agitated, and I don't have to have any story connected to it. Just saying, hey, the horse looks unsettled. Can you find it in yourself to get settled, right? With no story attached to it. That's the thing. The horse isn't creating a story.
Right.
The horse isn't like, is this about your childhood trauma?
Yeah.
They're just like, what's going on with you? And then you get that opportunity right then to go, let me find my breath. Let me be present. That's all. That it's as simple and as difficult as that, right?
Yeah. Now, I've got a few friends that work with animals in energetic settings, different animals, all types of. And one of the common threads that I find that I've heard each one kind of say individually in their own ways is how they've got to remind themselves they've got to come back to humanity and not just hang out with the animals that they love working with, because there's a beauty, like you were saying, like the horse doesn't have a narrative in his head. It's like, oh my God, what does he think of me? Does this saddle make me look fat? Like what the fuck, man? And so so because of that, there's none of this like, oh, I wonder what, are they thinking? Like we've established trust. I can look in your eyes now and get an understanding of how like you're emotionally set up. Do you feel safe? We talk about feelings a lot through this episode, and I love feelings because feelings are always inside of us. It's not like this plus this equals this feeling, because the feeling can come from a lot of different things. The feeling of safety can come from a lot of different areas, from a human being, from a room that I'm in, from a song that I hear. And so it's not always this plus this equals this feeling, but we know the feeling that we're working towards, right? And so that understanding of ourselves in a deeper way allows us to find that feeling. But that's a pure feeling. That's a pure understanding. And then we get to this thing of like, okay, now I'm going to go back to these, bipedal hairless apes and be like, well, I think this, and I don't really want to know. And I kind of want to eat this for dinner, but I kind of don't. It's like, God damn it, fucking make up your mind again. I'm going to go back to the horses, right? So yeah, do you have to find yourself like, okay, that's right, Jesse, you're a human. Go back to your humans and go talk to the humans in your life and not just always the four-legged beasts.
Well, it's interesting because I will hear a lot of people say they find it easier to talk with animals or be around animals, right? I find a lot of people say that, and they'd rather be around animals than humanity. I have a great love for both. Like, I really do. And I worked with a medium a number of years ago, and I remember she said, it was really pivotal for me at the time, but she said, who do you work for? Like, who's your master, essentially? What's your purpose? And I go, well, both the horses and humans. And she goes, no, you can only have one. And I said, I disagree. I disagree because we're all energy. We're all love. Like, all I would love to share on my purpose path is that we are all light, love, joy, peace, and I want greater flow in humanity. And whether that's done by speaking to a human or speaking to a horse or listening to my dog or hugging a tree, right? We're all energy. And so I will say oftentimes I feel very much like the horse. So where I didn't understand my horse communication for a very long time was that I embody it. I've worked with communicators that get visuals from horses or get auditory message from horses. And I've gotten a dabble in all of them, but my main communication is through an embodiment. And so I'll feel as they feel oftentimes. And I didn't always know that. I just always thought something was seriously wrong with me. I was always like, why am I feeling this? But I've had some pretty profound experiences that have led me to realize that's what was happening. I had a horse who had chronic stomach issues. And when I would go and do energetic work with her, I would have the worst stomach ache. And then if I stepped out of her aura, I would immediately feel better. And so that was a validation in that way that I'm like, oh, I am embodying this feel. When I sat with a horse at one time in my journey, I sat with this horse and said, can you please tell me? And both horses that sat with me at the time had the same steward, had the same person in their life. And I said, please tell me what it is I need to know so that I can help. And I sat there for multiple days. And then I just felt this extreme disappointment, just a flood of it. And so I texted the steward of these horses and I said, if you could summarize your life in one word right now, what it would be. And she said, extremely disappointed.
Wow.
And so they're carrying that. So oftentimes I will feel like the horse, that I will carry that embodiment of a feeling, whether it's coming from the horse or from the human. But I love both. I really love both.
Yeah.
What I appreciate is the honesty and the purity that is always coming from the horse, but I'm not always in an honest, pure form of receptivity. So that can be quite humbling. And I so appreciate when I get to witness somebody be in an honest, open, receptive place. So both are my teachers fully, and I'm so humbled by both of them.
That's beautiful. Now you mentioned embodying some of the emotions that the horse was having and stepping away from that aura and then having it go away. One of the things that I constantly have to check in with myself as a practitioner is those practices. Like, how do I cleanse after I work with in any session with any type of being? Is there a difference between working with humans and horses for your cleansing practices, as far as like noticing what's kind of sticky, been stuck onto you, how you get rid of that, whether it's sage or sometimes bathing, sweating, any of those things? Because I think that's one of the things that spiritual hygiene is one of the things that we miss a little bit on as practitioners, is making sure that we get all that sludgy, sticky stuff off of us after we're done with whatever session we're working with.
Yeah, and this is a great reminder for me to continue to do it. I have a trail that's by my barn that I often go on. I walk. It's a really beautiful 2-mile loop that I just go and I walk that 2-mile loop to let the day go. I do that at the end of my days. But there are often times, in all honesty, I'll feel that more directly when I work with humans than when I work with horses. When I work with the humans and we're processing something, that meditative walk is so very healing. When I'm with the horses, I often feel like I don't do that same spiritual cleanse.
Yeah.
I'm in communication with them. And oftentimes, what I try to do most importantly with the horses is an empowerment message or mantra to them, because I used to see them in a way where I felt so bad for them. I felt pity that they had to carry this. And I was putting them in a helpless or victim role. And so now I do this really, some people might call it silly, and I don't actually share it a lot, but I give them my telepathic fist bump. And I just go, all right, you got this, and it's like this empowerment fist bump that I will literally do telepathically of like a thank you. So there I don't do so much of a cleanse as just a gratitude, a prayer, and my fist bump.
I love that little proverbial fist bump to him.
Yes. Yeah. It was funny when it happened because I was like, wow, I would just come home and I would be sad and I'd be like, oh, this horse is having to deal with this and this, and I'm like, oh, I'm really holding an energetic space of you're helpless, you're hopeless. And I'm like, you're such a big animal. So that proverbial fist bump became, hey, I've done my best with them. Now you got to teach them whatever that looks like. And I've had clients get kicked. I've had clients get bit. I don't want that to happen. But what it did was I was like, all right, they can really take care of themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And offer an empowerment to them.
Wow. So your journey is still unfolding, sounds like. And it sounds like
always will be,
right? There's always something, right?
Yeah.
And that's not like a looming kind of thing. I have a buddy saying that always says, build your peaceful practices because one day you're going to need them. And that's not like a doomsday thing, but like I have a hard enough time maintaining this corporeal form of a human, let alone all the other humans and beautiful people in my life, right? And so eventually something's going to happen that's outside of my control. And so if I have meditation or if I have Reiki or if I have a breathwork practice or I have like amazing relationships with horses, if I know these things that I can pull out of my back pocket and say, hey, got it, right? I'm gonna at least start here, right? That's a jumping off point, right?
It's our energetic insurance policy.
Exactly.
It's our retirement plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, are you so as you're still opening up into life and utilizing all these practices in front of you, what are some of the things that if somebody's scared of their practice, like, oh my God, I'm fucking hearing horses, like, what is that shit all about? There's these trepidations that we might have as people, because we're like, I've been told if I hear things, if I see things, if there's any of these clairs that people talk about, feel things, then there's something
weirdo.
Wrong with me, right? Yeah, I'm weird, I'm schizo, I'm whatever, right? So do you have any kind of like advice for people that are just, like kind of intimidated by their gifts or not even realizing it is a gift at this point in time? They're like, there's not even a toe to be dipped in, right?
Yeah. So I just started this Sacred Horse and Human Circle to offer support in this
It's while I'm
area. People
teaching.
that are not, people that are not aware that they have these gifts, and everybody has them. People that are scared of their gifts. And I get all different walks of life coming in, some that are very involved with horses, some that are not involved. It's all connected. The biggest thing that I stress is to trust themselves and their process, because it's not going to look like anyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and then I'll share my story and I invite others to share their story. Like I said, for so long, I did not refer to myself as an animal communicator because I didn't get the images and I didn't get the verbal cues, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I started going, oh, I have just a different way of communicating. So I open up conversations with people that it can look in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, first, trust yourself. Second, practice. And third, you have nowhere to be. That's the biggest one, is because then everybody's meeting a message with where they are at, right? And some individuals come into that circle and they're like, I am going to learn this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, awesome. However that journey looks and unfolds, but you have to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So really getting in touch with feel. So the biggest thing that I would welcome anybody to do is learn to sit with their breath and see what comes up, and then trust what comes up, and then practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Practice, practice, practice.
You know, as hard as we try, we have these underlying expectations, you know, and it's,
Oh my gosh, always.
you know, I did my, about a little under a year ago, I did my second darkness experience where I sat in the dark for an extended amount of time. And the first one was the experience that it was, like, you know, whatever it was. And as much as so it was about a year in between, almost exactly a year. And when I went back and I kept telling myself, I'm like, okay, it's not going to be like the other one. You're not going to hibernate. You're not going to do all this. Like, don't have that expectation. But I'll be goddamned if I didn't wake up the first day. Because just a quick little snippet on that. My very first time that I went, I hibernated for 30 some odd hours. Like, I don't know how long I was asleep for because it's dark and there's no clocks in there, but I missed 3 meals and they feed you twice a day. I went in at like 9:00 p.m. on a Saturday and I woke up sometime Monday afternoon, famished and fucking just sore and all the things, right? So I had no context of time and what that thing was going. But, you know, there's these moments where, like, it's good to kind of take ourselves out of that context, right? Out of that idea of like, oh, I've got to do this and then this. You know, with I kind of forgot where my point was going.
Intention or expectation.
Oh, expectations. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So when I woke up on that during my second experience, that first day, I woke up and I'm like, "There's no way I slept for 30 hours. Like, this is already going wrong." And I'm like, "Well, there's that voice. Like, what is wrong?"
Yeah.
You know?
Expectations.
And so, like, my entire 7 days was sitting there trying to remind myself not to have expectations of what it was the last time. Right? It's like, God damn it, man. Even though we know it.
Oh, yeah. I went to, I don't know if I can like name drop on here. I went to AWA. Okay. I believe it was Jeffrey Marks.
Yeah. The medium.
Okay. Yeah. So I went to your yurt with Jeffrey Marks. I did the same thing. He opened it stating, don't come in with an expectation of who's going to visit you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, how amateur. Of course, like, this is what's going on in my head. And then he goes, and furthermore, don't come in with an expectation of, well, and when he said that, I was like, yeah, of course, my dad better visit me.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and don't have an expectation of what message they've brought. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course, he better apologize.
Yeah.
Like, this is what, you're right. Like, I'm literally answering him with the of course and the expectation.
Yeah.
And I found that to be hilarious because, I mean, isn't it, our suffering all comes from our expectations, right?
Yeah.
Always expecting something and we create our own suffering there.
Well, and in the background, as I'm listening to you all, my ego, which I have befriended and I'm okay with, is like, is it okay for us to have a non-attachment to a desire, right? Because I think this also plays into our life's experiences. Like, I have a desire to teach yoga. I have an expectation if I sign up for a teacher training, I'm going to learn how to teach yoga. So there's like, what I consider, and I like to bring in for myself and when I'm working with clients is what I call healthy entitlement. And it's through that is often like communication. However, when we go into a darkness retreat, right, what I hear is underneath that expectation is, what do I truly desire? And it's non-attachment. Like,
Yeah.
I would like to sleep for 30 hours and maybe get some deep downloads that I don't have to work so hard for, right? So in that desire or expectation, what I hear in between that is, I want to find ease in my experience, right? So I desire ease. I can have a definition of how I think that ease will come to me, but if I can be non-attached and just understand what's underneath it, I think that can be really potent. I think it can help us move towards the thing that calls all of us, whether it's, you call it God, great mystery, beloved, but it doesn't come with claw marks in it. Like gripping onto this thing. Which is a great
and you bring
teacher.
up a really interesting point that I wonder, though, when we say even the non-attachment, that there's still an attachment there. Like, desire is attachment, right? If I desire something, instead of saying I am ease, if there's the desire to be, I'm attaching, I have an expectation.
Right.
I do it all the time when I go out to sit with the horses. I'm like, I have no expectation. And then I sit there and I go, okay, so now that I've sat here, we've connected. Now I'd like to catch you. There's the expectation, right?
Yeah.
There's always these hidden expectations instead of being completely okay with the unfolding of whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
It's, it seems like a lot of our, let's call it our spiritual journey, since that's kind of the verbiage we've been using. A lot of our spiritual journey, it takes us out of our traditional physiological makeup of a human, right? To seek desires, right? And to understand all the things that are going to kill us and not make us happy, all these things that we're kind of like programmed, that we talk about as evolutionary psychiatry and all this shit like that, the EP, like, this is the way we are as humans. This is our desires. This is our ego. This is our thing. But then, like, as we start to move into a more, let's say, that conscious thinking, that idea, it's, we're constantly fighting tooth and nail our physiological makeup, right? To seek pleasure, to make sure that we only know the things that are going to kill us, that, like the understanding that happiness is an accidental byproduct of the brain. Like, we weren't meant to be happy. We're meant to know that the blueberry is going to kill us and the red berry is going to make us that fuck off the red berry. It's just not going to kill us. We'll get back to it. But we got to remember the blue one's going to kill us.
Right.
Right. And so
it's
this
duality
whole,
versus non-duality.
Yeah. So, this dopamine is just an accident, right? But as we start to move towards this different way of thinking and different way of living, we're, having to recognize the things that we're leaving behind, because it's like, hey, I recognize you, and there's part of that's going to come with me. Right. But it's not this divorcing of, the old self to the new self, like I can't remember which indigenous culture it is. And I read about it, a number of years ago. And I think it was this 10-year period between 2017 and 2027. So technically we're in the midst of it right now. But the idea was that, we're losing the abilities to sense and to feel, shame and jealousy. And so those are some of the emotions that, as we progress is in a conscious way, right? And not saying enlightenment or whatever that is, but in your own way of thinking, like, we understand that shame, in an evolutionary kind of standpoint, back in the day, shame was like, hey, you ate poop. Don't eat poop. That's disgusting. You've been shamed now. You cannot be part of our group for a little while because your face is covered in poop. That's
Shame
not what
on
we
you.
eat, right? You've stolen food from your neighbor. Shame. That's shameful. You've now, put them in danger, right? So there was a reason for shame, right? Same with jealousy. No. That is mine. That is my thing. You've taken my thing. I need my thing back, right? yeah, as we start to open our minds and we understand that what hurts me hurts you and vice versa, then these things like shame and jealousy can start to go away. Right. And I'm not saying that's like, hey, take that verbatim by 2027. We're all going to be fucking shame free and fucking, but it's just like that.
There goes my job.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Hey, you know what? If that's what it takes, take me out of work, man. I'll happily bow out. But
I was curious if it's only the people coming in that will no longer have shame and jealousy, and then we're like relics that still have experienced it.
Yeah,
that's a really good way to think about it.
I also think about like what we talked about in the beginning, that these things teach us something. If I feel guilty or ashamed about something, I'm learning.
Right.
I've learned that whatever decision led me to that is offering me healing, and this is so important because, like, again, anger, beautiful teacher. Guilt, beautiful teacher. Shame, beautiful teacher. They're not fun to experience, but if you're going to ignore them, you're going to repeat the problem, right? So, like, listen up and be attentive to it. My fear in whatever epiphany or whatever other word there is that for that, prophecy is the word I was looking for, is narcissism and arrogance and people who don't think that they have a reason to feel guilty or shameful. And I don't say that in like, I mean, good Lord, because guilt and shame are probably the worst disease that I think exists in all of humanity. But it's like when we shift the way that we look at it, there's a tremendous amount of value. And so if it disappears, what's going to teach everybody?
Hopefully we progress past those lessons needed to be taught.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the idea.
That would be beautiful. Yeah. Which to me is the lesson of non-duality. Like, and that's what I hear all of us saying to some degree when we, break down all the superficial blocks, is getting back to the basis of understanding what you said. Like, if I do something towards you, it's a reflection of me, and I'm already feeling it, but I'm projecting it at you. And if I'm not paying attention in that moment, it doesn't mean that I will never feel it. It'll come back to me as a felt sense of guilt or shame. And I can cover that up and protect it with a sense of arrogance or righteousness. But if I'm not separate from you, then there's never, and this is most of the work that I do in my trauma resolution practice, is it's teaching that we never actually wanted to hurt anybody. We never wanted to manipulate anybody. Right. We never wanted someone to show up against their free will and desire. And so that's, when I say things like desire without non-attachment, I think the reality for all human beings, whether they acknowledge it or not, is their one true desire is peace. And then everything outside of that is still in some form of in the dualistic sense. Like, I had a desire to wear comfortable clothes today because my uterus is shedding and I don't want anything that feels like it's touching me, squeezing me, or creating discomfort. If I went to my closet and I didn't have any soft clothing that could provide such, I might feel victimized, and then I could take responsibility for the fact that I hadn't done my laundry when I needed to. Right? So it's like these really ridiculous small lessons, but then we can blow that up into the same ways that I look at my children or my husband, which I've definitely been victimized by them over this last week, or we can call it PMS. But it's like what Jessie has been saying with her work, is it all comes down to how present we are to the feelings, and that those feelings bring us back to some form of a lesson, whether it's alignment or misalignment. And that's what I hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as we start to kind of wrap up here, are you, so we've talked about the book that's coming out. So I'd love to hear, what the process is, where you're at, when people can get that. But if people want to get in touch with you or kind of research your work a little bit more, where can people find you? Where can people go to learn about your book and learn about you?
So we're coming to the end of the year of the snake, and it's so fitting, this 9-year karmic cycle of the year of the snake. And I got to experience all of that. And we're stepping into the year of the horse.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
yeah, it's so perfect. It's so beautiful. And so in 2026, I am aiming to publish my book in 2026.
Great.
And if anybody wants to find me, I have a website. It's jessierosewest.com.
Beautiful.
And there's a bio on there, and they can contact me through that website. I'm on social media under the same name, Jessie Rose West. My parents somehow gifted me the most amazing cowgirl name that one could ask for. Yeah. And this has been such a delight to spend the time with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, good luck in your journey. And, if there's ever anything we can do to support you, please let us know.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you for listening. Remember to like or subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening to. And if you found this episode helpful, please comment or share it with a friend. Check out the show notes for links to get in touch with myself, Awa, or our guest. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. This episode was recorded, edited, and produced by Adam Reel.